This video is designed to show you how to fill out the purpose page on your student logbook page. The logbook, remember, is found on my website. This is page 8 in your logbook, so you'll have to scroll down a little bit to find it. The first thing that you need to do is replace your last name at the top of the screen with your actual last name. Not your first and last, just your last. Now there are two parts to the purpose section of the logbook. The first is the experimental question and the second is called purpose of experiment. The experimental question is just that. It's the question that you're asking and that question drives everything else about your experiment. It tells us about what you're testing. We're already at this point getting into details here. Tell us about what you want to know. Include the names of brands that you're planning to use. Include a brief summary of how you're going to be testing those brands or those products or those things that you have created. Already here, I'm going to stress it again, it's important, be specific. I've created 3 model experimental questions. Notice that all 3 of them are typed in black 12-point font. We don't want to be too creative with our fonts here. Stick with one of the standards. Times New Roman is okay, Cambria is okay. Whatever is already there is probably the best and safest way to go. Also, don't change the color. Don't change the font characteristics like bold or underlined or italic. Leave it plain, leave it 12-point. So the 3 questions that are written here are all different, but they deal with the same experiment. 2 of these 3 questions are not so hot. One of them is a model of what I would like to see when you turn this document in. So our first experimental question says, I'm testing paper towel to see what's the most absorbent. First of all, is that even a question? There's no question mark, it's a statement, right? We want to make sure that our experimental question is indeed telling us in question form what we are wanting to learn. Also notice the letter I. We want to avoid using I in our logbooks, period. We don't use I in good scientific writing. So anytime that you are tempted to put yourself into your document, take a step back and think strong voice. Make it a strong statement. Not I'm testing paper towel, but this experiment tests paper towel. It gives you a level of authority when you take that letter I out. So this first sentence is definitely not the way that we want to go. We use the letter I, it's not actually a question, and it's not super detailed. Experimental question number 2. What brand of paper towel is the most absorbent? Well, now we have a question, that's a good start, right? But this isn't specific enough. I actually grabbed this question straight out of one of the documents that I had posted on my website. Those documents were great for brainstorming experiment ideas, but oftentimes those documents and the questions that they suggested didn't share enough detail for them to be completely okay for this project. We have to take it a step further. It gave us an idea, that's great. Now we have to roll with that and take it to the next level. So what brand of paper towel is the most absorbent is a great place to start, but that's not where we want to end our experimental question. Remember, we want to include brand names. We want to summarize what we're going to be using to do our test. So example number 2, even though it's closer, is not what we're looking for in this document. Experimental question number 3, which brand of paper towel, Bounty, Scott, or Up and Up, notice I've listed my brands here, will absorb the greatest amount of spilled grape juice? Question mark. So we have a question. We don't have the letter I. Notice that the brands are labeled and we have summarized what we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking these 3 brands of paper towel and we're going to be using them to attempt to absorb spilled grape juice. Now that could be something else. It doesn't really matter what the liquid is, right? But for my experiment, the way that I'm going to set up all of my procedures, I'm using grape juice. It's okay if as you're working on this, you put some things down in your experimental question or purpose of experiment that don't end up happening. Perhaps at this point in the game, you think you're going to be using Bounty, Scott, and Up and Up brand paper towel, but when you actually go to the store, they don't have any Bounty on the shelf and you have to change to a different brand. That is totally okay. All of these documents that you're turning in this week and in the weeks following break are rough drafts. Just remember, if you make a change to your experiment after this point, you need to go back and update all of your forms so that they reflect what you actually did in your procedure. So of all of the experimental questions, experimental question number 3 is the most like what I would like to see from you when you turn in your purpose document tomorrow. Make sure that you are giving me detail. The second part of the purpose page is called Purpose of Experiment. Instead of a sentence, now I'm looking for a short paragraph. My example is only 3 sentences long. That is totally okay, but there are some important and specific things that you need to include in that short paragraph that you're writing. The first thing I'd like you to do is restate the question that you're hoping to answer. So you've already written it once. You don't have to say it in exactly the same words, but make sure that we understand again the essence of what you want to learn as a result of your experiment. Secondly, you need to summarize how your question is going to be tested. So what is your procedure going to be? In one sentence, not even more than that, just one sentence. What are you going to do in order to find out the answer to your question? And then, if possible, and this might not be for everybody, think ahead to how your experimental question, once you have an answer to it, could be practically applied. How could it be used outside of the science classroom? So in my example, you'll notice that I restated my question in a slightly different way. This experiment will test the absorbency of Bounty, Scott, and Up and Up brand paper towels. I'm giving more detail than I did in my question already in my second sentence. I'm telling the person reading, the judge, the teacher, the parent, whoever it might be, your classmate, what sort of measurements I'm going to be using now with my paper towel brands. I'm going to use one 5-inch by 9-inch sheet of each paper towel brand, and I'm going to place those sheets into a bin containing 50 milliliters of grape juice. So it's not just what I'm using, but it's how much I'm using, it's how I'm containing the grape juice, it's how much grape juice there is. It's still only one sentence, but that sentence is crammed full of details. The next and last sentence tells a little bit about how this question might be helpful to someone outside of my experiment. The results of this experiment may help parents, teachers, and anyone else who regularly uses paper towel to make better decisions when they go to the store. I don't have to get any more specific than that at this point. I just want to set the stage. I want people to start thinking about how they can use this experiment as they're reading through your data. So that is the purpose page. Remember that the purpose page is due still this week, so use your time wisely, be focused. If you have questions, please let me know. I am happy to help. Good luck.